What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today we're taking a look at the Jolteon VMAX archetype, and a bit of a different video. We're just doing a deck profile today, but I'm going to talk about the different inclusions and counts in Jolteon VMAX and try to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at this deck today, since it has been performing really well. It was ranked number 3 in the top 10 decks in last week's top 10 video. And there's been a lot of recent performances with the decks on both online events and IRL events. So we'll get into really taking a look at the Jolteon VMAX archetype. But before that, shout out to my sponsors, PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code CELIO for 5% off. CardTrooperGames.com, where you can find booster boxes and singles, and you can use code CELIO for 5% off over there as well. And PokemonCard.io, where you can find my standard format deck lists. So, before we look at the deck profile, I wanted to read off some performances that have happened recently. You can find a lot of online events and online finishes on play.limitlesstcg.com, but Jolteon's also been doing well in real life events, on paper events. So, it got first and second, respectively, by Greg and Kobe in the Tabletop Village tournament. That was a 20-player in real life event. The first place list was the Jolteon VMAX Beedrill variant, which was popularized by Tricky Jim, and the third place was Jolteon VMAX without Beedrill. And then Vaughn O'Brien won a 1.7K tournament in Connecticut. It had 34 players, and there was almost $2,000 in the prize pool there. He won with Jolteon VMAX. And then Charlie Kerr got top 8 at a 1K event in Florida, and they split top 8, so they didn't play any further in top 8, and that event had 36 players, and Charlie played Jolteon VMAX. The list we are going to look at today in particular is the list that my mom piloted in the GG Tour Chill $500 tournament on Play Limitless over this weekend. And this is a list that her and I worked on. It doesn't have too many unique factors, but I think some of the card counts in here really matter. And then the one unique card, of course, is Sydney, which we had seen other people experimenting with. So why is Jolteon VMAX good? So Jolteon VMAX is good because it can essentially end the game in 3 attacks. Max Thunder Rumble does 100, 100. So you can do 100 3 times to a VMAX and fix that with ping damage from Zigzagoon and Inteleon while hitting bench sitters for 100 each time. So in the Mew VMAX matchup, you can hit a Meloetta and then a Genesect twice. Sometimes you will need to knock out either 3 Genesects by bossing up Genesects and hitting them, or knock out a Mew VMAX and 2 Genesects. So sometimes you will have to play that 7-price card game. Against Single Strike, you can knock out a VMAX, and a Houndoom, or even 2 Vs and 2 Houndoom/Houndours. Against Suicune, that's your most favorable matchup because they are weak to lightning. And then there are some single prize matchups like Rapid Strike Malamar, where you're going to be able to knock out both of their Inkay/Malamars at the same time, helping with ping damage. The ping damage will be helping with that. So Jolteon VMAX has a lot going for it. Now, I do think it had what would be considered 2 auto losses in the format, which would be Single Strike Urshifu and Rapid Strike Urshifu. But I actually think only Rapid Strike Urshifu is an auto loss, or a very poor matchup, so to speak. So I think 2 bosses orders is imperative to play in this deck, because one of the main win conditions against some of the top decks is going to be you need your opponent to whiff just 1 time, and you can force that, or you can force them into a situation where they're more likely to whiff by bossing up something, swinging with 100, and hoping that boss target you put up there sticks. Just for 1 turn, you need it a lot of times. So the double bosses orders really helps in the single strike Urshifu matchup. Those decks are typically playing somewhere between 2 to 3 switches slash air balloons. And if you can boss up a target that doesn't have the single strike energy on it, like a Houndoom with 2 retreat, an Umbreon with 2 retreat, a single strike Urshifu V, when they already have all of their energy on a V or a V max that is now on the bench, and you can get it stuck there for a turn, that is going to result in a win a lot of times, as long as you both had kind of similar tempoed setups. As long as you're getting an attack off on turn 2 and turn 3 and turn 4, if you can boss up on one of those turns to get something stuck there and it does stick, that can be the difference in the game. So I think two bosses orders is really, really crucial to play in the Jolteon deck. Now, I did see that Isaiah Bradner was speaking of not playing Path to the Peak or even just lowering the Path to the Peak count and playing cross switchers in the deck, but personally, I'm not a fan of the cross switchers, and I'd rather play boss's orders because you can just grab it with a Drizzile. You can grab something else you need plus a boss's orders with the Inteleon Shady Dealing. So I do prefer the boss's orders and also keeping the path to the peak. Now, against Mew, you can also do the boss's orders play, but the original plan against Mew was Fan of Waves and Energy off, then Path to the Peak, and then Marnie. This deck can do that, but with the Sydney involved, you have a secondary strategy there. So you can Fan of Waves plus Path to the Peak plus Sydney. Sydney is a supporter card that reads your opponent reveals their hand. Discard up to 2 in any combination of tool cards, special energy cards, and stadium cards from it. So this can even help in against single strike Urshifu if they have something in the active, if you didn't just boss them up, of course, because you can't boss and Sydney in the same turn, but if they have something in the active that you think they want to retreat next turn, Sydney can even get an air balloon out of their hand if they are playing air balloon in their list. But really, this is going to focus on getting rid of special energy and stadium cards because with the Mew VMAX decks now not playing Peony, or most of them not playing Peony, they don't have a way other than Cramomatic, which is a coin flip, to directly search out a stadium card, and their draw support is all Genesect. So if you can Path to the Peak them and then Sydney to discard their counter stadium from their hand, they might just get stuck there and not really be able to do much. And Fan of Waves, if they don't have any other energy in their hand, or if they do and you discard it, can leave them not able to attack on the following turn. And then you just run away with the game by doing 100-100 spread a couple times in a row. The Rapid Strike Urshifu matchup is much worse than the Single Strike Urshifu matchup because they only need one energy and then Gale Thrust you to knock you out. They can also just destroy your Sobbles and Drizzles with Rapid Flow. Um, Also, they have less viable bench targets to bosses orders up because they can just scoop up net their Sobble, Drizzile, and Teleon. They can rapid Tower of Waters out their other Urshifu or Octillery or something like that. So, Rapid Strike Urshifu is going to be the deck's worst matchup that you do not want to face. So, like I was saying, my mom did play this. She got top 32. She placed 23rd out of 214 in the GG Tour tournament over the weekend. And she played against 5 single strike decks over the course of 13 rounds. Over the course of 13 rounds, she played against 5 single strike Urshifu decks and 1 rapid strike. So almost half of her day was poor matchups, yet she still placed top 32. Uh, she ended up going 2-3 versus the single strike Urshifu matchups. Excuse me. So she went 2-3 versus 5 single strike Urshifu Umbreon matchups because of that double boss's orders, and maybe also because of the Fan of Waves. Another thing is 3 Path to the Peak is a little on the heavy side, but with it helping versus Mew VMAX, and Mew VMAX is 1/5 of the meta game, I think that is reason enough to play 3 Path to the Peak. Of course, if there's another card you really want in the deck, you can cut it down to 2. I've been seeing a lot of 3 elemental badge in Jolteon VMAX, and I think that's just a waste of space in the deck because the amount of decks playing Tool Scrapper are so minimal. Really, off the top of my head, I can think of the only decks playing Tool Scrapper popularly are other Jolteon VMAX decks because you want to be able to get rid of Tool Jammer. So I don't see much reason to play 3 Elemental Badge, especially since you don't always need it on your Pokemon. Because a lot of times on turn 2, if you have 2 energy in your hand, you attach turn 1, then you attach turn 2, you don't even search out your elemental badge for turn 2 because you just have another energy to attach. Um, and then eventually you want an elemental badge so you can also Cheryl. But I feel like 3 elemental badge is wasting space when you can have things like second Fan of Waves, second Cheryl, a Sydney, second Boss, second Zigzagoon, things like that. So I'm pretty comfortable with just 2 elemental badge. We have 4 quick ball, 4 evolution incense, and 3 level ball. I think level ball is the least useful of them. 4 quick ball, I would cut that down to 3 and bring it up to 4 level ball, except we're not playing capture energy in this deck, and you can just lose if you start like Zigzagoon and Sobble and you just can't find your Jolteon V to get down. So 4 quick ball is really important. I wish there was another way to get Jolteon V down turn 1 that we could play more of. But then Evolution Incense is just better than Level Ball because Evolution Incense can get Drizzile, both Inteleons and your Jolteon VMAX, whereas Level Ball cannot get Inteleons and cannot get Jolteon VMAX, but it can get Zigzagoon, it can get Sobble, but I think they are less important than just getting your Evolution out and attacking. So that is going to be the full deck profile on Jolteon VMAX. I think I went through most of the popular matchups, if not all of the popular matchups, and why this is not just auto losing to single strike Urshifu, why it's 50-50-ish against Mew. It's good against Suicune, horrible against Rapid Strike Urshifu. It's good against Leafeon because it has free retreat, and it can just share all the damage that they do to it. Um, and what else do we have in the top of the meta? It's fair against Gengar VMAX in the same way it is against regular single strike decks. And I think that's most of the important decks. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up there. So I hope you enjoyed this deck profile and a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on Jolteon VMAX. Let me know if you are more interested in this than the typical brief deck profile plus PTCGO gameplay. I feel like the PTCGO gameplay can be entertaining, but this is more informational for the players really looking to step up their game. So let me know if I'm correct in that assessment in the comments down below. And be sure to subscribe to this channel for daily Pokemon TCG content if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. And I'll see you next time here on Celios Network.